Our top story. The Lebanese Prime Minister and President were warned by security officials last month about the explosive materials stored in the Beirut port area that caused last week's blast. Documents seen by the Reuters news agency say leaders were told the ammonium nitrate posed a security risk and could destroy the capital if it exploded. It comes as Lebanon's parliament now has to decide on a new prime minister after Hassan Diab announced he and his government would step down. The decision follows widespread public fury. The blast killed more than 200 people, injured thousands more, and left hundreds of thousands homeless. Bernard Smith is our correspondent talking to us this hour out of Beirut. So what's going on around where you are right now, Bernard?
Peter, I'm in the Mar Mikhael part of Beirut and I'm in front of prime multi-million-dollar apartments with an uninterrupted view of the sea. Because in front of me is the port where those 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate exploded last Tuesday. So every apartment building shattered or destroyed. In that building, in the one to its right, and the ones all the way along the waterfront and inland, a 3-kilometre radius from the port. Clean-up operation still ongoing, of course. It's going to be years long, but most of that cleaning up being done by volunteers, and they've been out in force again this morning. The government, the local government, now estimates 70,000 homes have either been damaged or destroyed as a consequence of that explosion, and we already know about 250, maybe as many as 300,000 people have been left homeless, most of them taken in by relatives elsewhere in the country or being put up in hotels or other people's friendly, helpful neighbours' homes. Peter.
And what else, Bernard, do we know about these reports that we're now filtering our way through, saying that local politicians were warned in July about potentially what could happen?
Well, we understand that the President and the Prime Minister were explicitly sent a letter warning them 2 weeks before the explosion of the danger of storing that ammonium nitrate in the port in an urban area, and they were told it could flatten the city, and it did. But that wasn't the first warning. There'd been warnings for years and years and years. Almost every 6 months or so, some department would warn the judiciary that this ammonium nitrate needs to be moved, but nothing was done. The buck was passed on and on and on, and nobody moved it. And what infuriates people here, not only why was it stored there in the first place, but that people knew and that people were warned that it was being stored there, and yet still they did nothing. So the preliminary investigation has told us what a lot of people already suspected, that people knew it was there and did nothing about it. Further investigations, whether they ever get to the truth, are why it was left for so long, what interest did people have in leaving it there for so long and not moving it, and why wasn't it taken to other places? So many questions remain to be answered, but what people want is reconstruction help, and they won't get that, they won't get the money from overseas that they need until there is what the overseas community considers an acceptable cabinet. The current one, dominated by Hezbollah and its allies, is not accepted internationally. It's isolated. There will be a new cabinet. There is enormous pressure to make sure that that cabinet is more representative and includes the opposition, although they have been resistant to taking part in any cabinet with dominated by Hezbollah and its allies, Peter. OK, Bernard, thank you very much. Bernard Smith, our correspondent there in Beirut. Let's bring in Mark Daou from Beirut as well. He's a former Lebanese parliamentary candidate. Mark, welcome back to Al Jazeera. First off, can I just ask you for your reaction to these revelations and claims that people in the political orbit in Lebanon at the highest level were told in July this is an accident waiting to happen?
Obviously, it's a proof again of the incompetence of those in power and their strive just to get to power without any sense of public service. I think this is why we claim that this is borderline crime against humanity, because you cannot be so negligent with a capital city that includes 2 million people living in it with the size of that explosion. And again, this requires an international investigation, because it's very obvious that what happened here is no mere accident. It is criminal negligence of the health and safety of an entire population.
Is there a chance that once these claims and revelations filter through to the wider population, because they're taken up 24 hours a day with this cleanup operation, with thoughts of rebuilding or changing locations for their businesses? That's what we've been seeing in the past 2 days now. Will these revelations simply refuel and re-energize the anger that's led to the protests that we've seen between Tuesday and yesterday?
I believe so, yes. There is an incremental increase in the violence that the government has undertaken against the protesters. Just imagine 5,000 injured because of the explosion and close to 250 dead. And then 2 days after, when the people went to protest, the security forces caused 400 injuries among the protesters. 400 injuries, including rubber bullets at the eyes of the protesters. This is the quality of leadership that the Lebanese people who know of the threat, and I think take no action. That is a fact. And I think that those individuals should be criminally investigated for their crimes against the population. I think it's incremental. The anger will build up, and I think the pressure will build up as people feel the immense impact on their businesses, on their livelihoods, and even on their mental health. The kids I know are sleeping next to pillows on the windows and other areas because they can no longer sleep in their beds, feel safe. This is the mental state of an entire population that has been rocked by a quasi-nuclear explosion in their midst.
We have to leave it there. Mark Daou, thank you very much for joining us from Beirut.